Hey Leamons, welcome back to another video of mine. So, a common question I get asked is if I am a furry, or people just assume I am one. So, video time. What really is a furry? Also, if you don't know, furry most commonly means someone who dresses up in a fursuit, typically of their animal fursona, and a fursona is a representation of themselves that can be very positive, fun, and give the person confidence. Although not everyone that is a furry has a fursuit, so it begs the question of what a furry really is. Honestly, I didn't know what a furry was until I was like 14, so I don't expect everyone to know, so hopefully that kind of explains it shortly. So yes, people ask me if I'm a furry a lot, even though I do not have a fursuit nor plan on getting one in the future. My main mascot is a harp seal, although I do tend to draw lots of animals and even anthropomorphic ones time to time. By the way, anthropomorphic animals are characters on two legs that walk and talk like humans would, but they are animals. I'm using this term a lot in this video, so I thought I would explain it to anyone who might not know the meaning. So, what does it mean to be a furry? Am I a furry? People ask me lots, and these questions can be nice, or they can be rude. It depends on how someone asks me. I don't particularly take offense when someone does ask me, no matter how rude it may come off. I usually just don't care. I've also heard people joke around about furries in my schools or online, and I honestly don't really care much about that either. There are aspects that can be funny about the furry community. I think most of us can admit that furries can be cringe, no matter if you identify as a furry or not. I mean, gosh, I've caught myself cracking furry jokes now and then too. It doesn't mean I don't like furries or I think they're bad people. Well, not most of them. I do think furries are great, don't get me wrong, although I do discuss something kind of serious later on in the video. But if you do hear others making furry jokes, I wouldn't take it too personally. Typically, it's just harmless jokes that don't mean anything intentionally bad. Although, if someone is making a furry joke to your face and bullying you in the process, that's where it's not okay. I've heard all sorts of stories. Stories about people who get barked or meowed at in a rude way, stories about people getting hated on for a drawing they made that is a furry, and sometimes people will call someone a furry for literally drawing a cartoony dog on all four legs. That is not a furry, that is just a regular dog. Oh, and I've received a comment from someone who had a decently popular TikTok account where they post videos, which was for fun and it was harmless, and they got so much hate for just being a furry. Hate that wasn't necessary in the slightest, and I'm aware TikTok is definitely a more toxic environment for furry hate, but it just seems ridiculous to me that people would go out of their way to hate and say mean things to somebody that just enjoys furry-related things for fun. Anthropomorphic animals in media, drawing furries or animal characters, cosplaying them in fursuits, and so much more. If you don't like furries or think they are weird, well, that's alright. It's your opinion, and that's totally valid. Honestly, furries are kind of weird, I have to admit. But don't give them hate for it, just ignore them and move on. Don't get involved and give unnecessary hate. But that leads us to a question. What really is a furry? Because from what I've seen and heard, people are giving hate to others who aren't even furries, which the hate shouldn't happen regardless. But obviously, no one knows what a furry is at this point, so I'm gonna discuss that. Like I said previously, people nowadays will make fun of someone for drawing a dog that is on all four legs. That doesn't make any sense. So I'll explain this to you. Just because someone draws lots of animals, typically ones like dogs, wolves, or cats, that does not mean they are a furry. And actually, if someone does draw an anthropomorphic animal, that doesn't mean they're a furry either. With that logic, all the people who made the movie Zootopia would be furries. And saying that out loud sounds dumb, because it is, so don't assume someone is a furry due to what they draw. Just because someone enjoys drawing either a feral or anthropomorphic animal does not automatically make them a furry. And same goes for liking animal or furry related things in media. There are people I know who confessed to me that they liked the anime Beastars, like it was an actual confession to me. And I just sat there confused at why it mattered if they liked the anime. Just because Beastar has anthro animals in it doesn't mean you're a furry for watching and enjoying it. It has a beautiful story, one about discrimination and trying to live your life in a society of prey and predators. I've watched it, and I would ask you to give it a chance, furry or not furry. It's practically a Zootopia, but has way more mature themes. If you're 15 plus, that is. I mean, that's what Google told me the age should be for the anime, so sorry if I'm wrong. It's definitely more mature than some other shows. Anyways, it seems like in today's world, people almost have to justify these furry-related interests because they're worried they'll be labeled as a furry. Which, I mean, who cares? That shouldn't even matter. It's an interest. It may be cringe, but it's harmless. Most of the time. I need to clarify something. I didn't want to, but I have to, as it's a problem, and a reason why people dislike furries so much. Some furries are really, I'm sorry to say, but some furries are just nasty. And I'm not grouping furries as a whole to these few nasty individuals, but some of the things I've seen or heard about are straight up disgusting. Unfortunately, in the furry community, there are some really messed up people. Ones that enjoy the idea of getting a bit too touchy with real life animals, which if you don't know, it's called zoophilia. It's something terrible people do to animals. But by the way, the furry community hates these people too. So I don't understand how they get roped into the same category with the community as a whole. That's unfair because there are so many great people in the furry community, so many great, nice, creative people that are super nice and harmless. So please, if you somehow group these people together, do not do that. Those nasty people are in their own nasty subcategory. But just know, there's always going to be awful people in every community. There's awful people in general in this world. So you can't avoid that. You just can't. And, that sucks. But you shouldn't categorize every single furry you meet with these kinds of similar gross interests that very few of them have. And unfortunately, even though it's a small amount of people that have these nasty tendencies, they get noticed more because every nasty or bad thing gets exposure. That's how it works in this world. The negatives, even being bad, are far more interesting than the positives when it comes to news. And that's just the unfortunate facts. But anyways, moving on. Furries have kind of received a bad name because of what I just talked about. Also, I don't know where to say this in the video script, but by the way, furries do not think they're actually an animal. That is a very common misconception in the community. Just thought I would mention that too. Anyways, due to this bad name furries have gotten, people are afraid to identify with being a furry, or even draw or like furry animal-related interests. It's actually sad when you think about it. Something that is harmless and just fun was ruined by some nasty people who came along and just happened to be in the community too. That genuinely makes me upset. Just because you enjoy something animal or furry related does not mean you're a furry. Just because you draw something animal or furry related does not mean you're a furry. Just because you have a fursuit, okay, I think if you have a fursuit, you're probably a furry. But for the other things, it doesn't mean you're a furry. And I wish people would understand that. Do you want to know how someone is actually considered a furry? The question you have all been waiting for. You're a furry if you identify with being one. That's right. You are the one who decides if you want to be a furry. If you want others to call you one and know you as one, that's on you to figure out. And again, it doesn't mean you actually think you're an animal. It doesn't mean you have to have a fursuit to be one. Not everything in the furry community applies to everyone. But yes, if you identify with being a furry, you're a furry. And you're all probably wondering if I am a furry. Not sure if anyone noticed me totally avoid the question at the start, but I'm going to answer that. I didn't ignore it because I didn't want to answer it, but instead for suspense. But I need to talk about something that led me to my decision first. I discovered what furries were when I was 14, but to my surprise, before I knew, growing up, I was always interested in lots of furry or animal-related things, without knowing, such as always being an animal on Halloween, wearing those animal hoodies every day to school. It was an elementary school thing, just so you all know. Liking the typical furry Pokemon a lot, a strong dislike for Barbies, and a strong like for pet shops, loving the movie Zootopia as a kid, wanting a pet dog so much and being tragically allergic. I have a leopard gecko now, for anyone who didn't know. His name is Bingo, and lots more. So like I said, I was interested in all these things, but I didn't even know what a furry was at the time. When I did find out, I was also just starting to become interested in drawing at the time. I was wanting to make my own characters and animate or put them into comics, and I was very fond of the idea of a dog and a cat character, but one that was anthropomorphic, that walked and talked. These characters became true, and I called them Emmy and Moon. I drew them for years and eventually stopped after a while. I just enjoyed drawing animal things, like tails or ears or the cute fluff on some of them. Well, depending if they're a mammal or reptile, that is. It was more fun to draw these animal characters than a human was, to me at least. Although, I didn't want to say I was a furry, I just said they were characters like any other when people asked me. Because from all the hate the community got, I was scared to admit that I like furry things. And I honestly didn't like fursuits or want one. I never really was a part of the community, or I never went to any of the conventions. But I knew I liked all these animal and furry related things, that it must mean I'm a furry. I had to be. Well, that was wrong of me to assume. I met someone at my school that was similar to me. He drew furries too and found anthropomorphic characters to be interesting. But when I asked him if he was a furry, he told me he wasn't. He said no, that he was not in the community. He would never get a fursuit and he didn't have one. And that doesn't mean he dislikes furries. He honestly just didn't want to associate with the community. And that's when I realized I didn't either. I never had really been a part of the community. Yeah, I draw them time to time, but I don't talk to many furries. I'm not a part of any online communities for them. I never wanted to get a fursuit. I was never actually interested in wearing one. I never went to any of the conventions. A lot of my furry characters are maybe somewhat a reflection of me, but different enough and not a persona by any means, more so characters for stories. So what he said was eye-opening for me. For so long, I just assumed I had to be a furry if I liked furry-related stuff. But just because you do, doesn't mean you are a furry. You decide that by yourself, like I previously said. So no, I am not a furry. I don't associate with the furry community, I don't have a fursuit, but yes, I really do enjoy furry-related things, shows, movies, games, and I do draw them. So that's my answer for you. This ended up being a way longer video than I expected. Like, when you think about it, this video was merely to answer a question about what a furry really is. Although it is a complex question with a lot surrounding it, and I also wanted to talk about if I identified with being a furry too. So yeah, longer video than expected. And I'm not sure how this video will even do. Will people give hate in the comments to furries? We just don't know. I hope not, but like, it's possible. Anyways, please like my video and do leave a comment. It really helps my channel grow. Let me know if you also enjoy animal related things or even consider yourself to be a furry. It's been Leamon Puppy. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys all next time.